Hello, everyone. Okay, so this week's parasha Shelach, dealing with the story of the Meraglim, of the spies that were sent into the land of Canaan, right, by Moshe, and coming back with their evil reports, caused the Jewish people to cry about the fact that they're being taken into the land of Israel, right, is one of the hardest parashiyos in the Torah to understand what's going on. Meaning, with the understanding that we're talking about people that, in just a year ago, before this, a year and a couple months had been, if they were in Egypt and they were drinking out of the same cup as an Egyptian, and for them, out of the cup came water, and for the Egyptian who took the cup away, what was in the cup came out as blood, right? They saw miracles you cannot begin to fathom, right? So without understanding, it's very, very hard to understand this parasha. So I would like to go a little bit through a possible. There are many, many, many explanations and answers given to understand what happened here, and so I just want to give one. I will just like to give one that I saw. So just to kind of give over this general story in short, this detail is actually not said in our parasha. Actually, Moshe Rabbeinu says this in Devarim, in Parashat Devarim, where he talks about this story. He says that the Jewish people came in a crush to Moshe Rabbeinu and said, "We're getting close to Eretz Yisrael. We're getting close to the land of Canaan. We want to send spies to check out the land." And Moshe Rabbeinu says that this, to him, was something that met his approval, and he asked Hashem. Hashem said, and this is Rashi brings at the beginning of our parasha, that Hashem says to Moshe that I'm not telling you to send spies. If you want, you can send, right? And Moshe Rabbeinu does. Hashem told him to pick leaders of the Jewish people. Moshe Rabbeinu does. He sends them. They come back 40 days later with an evil report, right? The people cry, right? And Hashem basically says, in the words of parents from time immemorial, right? If you're crying now for nothing, I'll give you something to cry about, right? So, and from then after, we have the day that the spies came back from Eretz Canaan was on Tisha B'Av. From ever after Tisha B'Av had been a day of tears for the Jewish people. So, just to try and understand a little bit some of the details, there's many, many details that have to be worked out and to fully understand the story and what was happening. But just to speak a little bit about some of them, it seems like that from the first Rashi, again in our parasha, where it says that our parasha starts that Hashem told Moshe, "Send for yourself spies," meaning, and Rashi explains that I'm not telling you to go. I'm not telling you to send them. If you want, send them. But says Hashem that I told you that this land that we're coming to is a good land, right? And you still want to send spies, right? By your life, I will give you a place to make a mistake. Meaning that it seems that the Jewish people did something that Hashem did not approve of, and therefore he gave them a test, right, that they would have to pass, right, which was the test of the spies. Okay, so what was wrong with what the Jewish people requested, right? So therefore, and the next thing I want to talk about after we talk about that is what was the test of the spies? What was meaning Hashem said, I'm going to give you, the words are imakom litos, a place to make a mistake, b'davar hameraglim, regarding the matter of the spies, right? In order so that there's a possibility that you will not be able to go into the land. Meaning, this land that I told you was good, and you still don't trust me, right? I will give you the chance, basically, now to end up not actually going into that land that I told you was good, right? So, what was this test? And the third thing, if I get there, if we have time, is that after Moshe Rabbeinu told the Jewish people that you've lost a chance, and anyone over the age of 20 will not be going into the land, right? What did everyone turn around to do? Right? They turned around and said, no, we're going, right? Meaning we have to keep in mind that we're talking about great and holy people. But it sounds like when you're talking to your kid, right? And the kid is saying, he wants to go outside, right? And the mother says that I can't go outside. You can't go in the backyard right now. It's full of stuff that's not safe. Okay, but I want to go outside. The mother says, I don't have time to clean up the yard yet. Wait a little bit. The kid is whining. And then finally the mother goes outside and cleans up the yard. And then to come back inside and tell the kid, okay, now safe for you to go outside now. No, go enjoy. And the kid says, no, I don't want to go outside. Right? So from a little kid, you expect that. That's how kids are, right? They change their mind, right? It's the drop of a hat, right? But when you're talking about a generation, right, of mature adult people, right, that saw what we cannot begin to fathom, like what was going on. First, they want to go, they don't want to go, then they do want to go. What's going on? So, in regards to what was the problem with what the Jewish people asked for? So really, and also a part of that is, that's hard to understand, is that Moshe Rabbeinu himself says and records in Devarim when he's talking to the Jewish people about this incident. He says, Moshe Rabbeinu himself says, it was good in my eyes, right? I thought it was something positive. So what means that even though the Jewish people did something wrong, were doing something wrong, there was something about it that Moshe himself thought was good, right? So what was that? So there's something you need to understand about what going into Eretz Canaan, which would become Eretz Yisrael. What was something about that we need to understand? There was that the difference between going into how they were going to live in their homeland and how they were living at that point in the desert was a complete radical change. Meaning, back up a step, the point of life, right, as said over by many of our sages and brought in many works of ethics and Musar, right? The point of life is to withstand tests, right? To live in this world, right? To live in this world and not live with miracles, live in this world, live in the physical, and yet make it spiritual, right? Remember of Hashem, connect to Hashem in the mundane, make the mundane spiritual, right? That was the ultimate job of the Jew, right? And that job was only going to begin once the Jewish people entered the land of Israel. Right? Before then, they were in the Midbar, they were in the desert. They had a completely miraculous existence, right? They were being fed, right? Well, the food, down to the food they were eating, right? What were they eating? They were eating mun. Mun was a completely spiritual food, right? Sages say that the Jews do not need to go to the bathroom in the desert. Why? Because the mun was completely absorbed into the body. There's nothing left over, right? Why? Because it was a completely spiritual food, right? This is said over our sages. It was what's called a mazon ruchni, right? So, and the whole concept of the well and the that followed them, right? It was a life of miracle. That was not the point of existence. The point of that was to teach the Jewish people that to know that even when you are involved in the world and growing your crops on your farm in Israel, right? You have to know who's making everything grow. Is it you or is it God, right? So you have to know the Jewish people had an existence where they completely subsisted on faith alone, the faith that God was going to sustain them, right? They had to have that incubation period before they got to the land of Israel to remember for the rest of their existence that it's God behind the scenes who is running the world, right? And you are playing your part. So what's playing your part? I mean, playing your part is going through the motions necessary, right, to bring about your livelihood and everything else that you need to, run your life. So the Jewish people understood that now they're about to go into the land of Israel, right? That means they understood that their lives are about to change, right? They're about to go from this incubation period to, so to speak, being born, right? To hit they were going into to fulfill their mission in the world now, right? To live in the mundane world and bring it and make it holy. So the Jewish people wanted to hit the ground running. They wanted to get a head start. So when you want to get a head start, meaning they were going to enter this land and they would have to conquer it, right? How are they going to conquer it? They would have to go to war, right? Okay, so why do we have to go to war? Because once you enter the land of Israel, the existence of open miracles stops, and now we have to do our part, right? We have to go to battle, right? Within battle, there might be, miracles, right? But we have to wage war. So step one in waging war is you have to send spies, right? You got to know your information. You got to know the lay of the land. You got to know your enemy, right? It's always fascinating to me. I'm in general fascinated with World War II history, but part of the most fascinating is reading about all the espionage that happened behind the scenes, right, to enable everything that you read about in the regular history books to happen. Is always the most fascinating thing, right? So every good army needs, as much as people joke that military intelligence is a contradiction in terms, right? But you have to have it, right? So they wanted to send spies. And to Moshe, and Moshe Rabbeinu said that's very valid, right? Very valid thing, right? You have to learn to live in this world and not with a miraculous existence. So you're right. And we find that Moshe Rabbeinu himself sent spies. We find later that he himself sent spies. We find Yeshua, right, we find at the beginning of Joshua when Yeshua himself sent spies, right? Spies is something that's normal to do. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, you're right, we should send spies, right? What's the problem? So where was the problem? The problem was like this. If the Jewish people should be sending spies because that's the avoda, that's the thing they should be doing now as part of their spiritual service of Hashem, right? Preparing to live in the mundane world, right? Preparing to live without the miraculous existence. So who should be telling them it's now time to start transitioning? Their leader, Moshe Rabbeinu, should be the one telling them that, right? Meaning Moshe Rabbeinu is the person who we found out last week, right? Speaks face to face with God, right? Like I'm speaking to you, right? If there's something that the Jewish people need to know from Hashem, they would know about it, right? There was never a leader like Moshe Rabbeinu, right? There's no one else who's going to tell them as well as him as what their service of Hashem requires right now, right? And the idea did not come from Moshe Rabbeinu. The idea came from the Jewish people, right? Even if you have a good idea and you think it's proper, right? But if the person who that idea is supposed to come from is not saying it, right? Then it's not your place to get involved. It was not the Jewish people's place to tell Moshe Rabbeinu or what they needed to do now in order to advance their service of Hashem, right? When you have Moshe Rabbeinu leading you, you should ask him. You wait for him to tell you what is my job right now, right? And so it says Hashem, because of that, because you are getting yourself mixed into what is not your business, so to speak, right? I mean, this is something that should be coming from the top down, right? So I'm going to give you the test to see if I'm going to give you a test. So what was this test? And interesting to point out, like this was the power of this test, meaning this is not a simple thing to overcome. How do I know? Well, we're going to talk about what this test was, the test of the Meraglim. Hashem gave them the test of the Meraglim to see if they would stand and overcome it or not, or fall. What was this test? And I'm sorry, back up. What that you see, we can, even before discussing what this test was, you can see how powerful the test was. Because before the spies were sent, Moshe Rabbeinu prayed for Yeshua, right? Moshe Rabbeinu prayed that Yeshua should not falter, should not fall in this test, right? He should not fall prey to the plan of the Meraglim. We'll see what it is soon, but Moshe Rabbeinu had to pray for Yeshua. When the spies were in the land of Israel, Kollel, one of the spies, when they passed by Ma'aras Machpelah, passed by where the patriarchs and matriarchs are buried, right? And he went and prayed at their graves. What did he pray for? What was he davening for? He was praying to Hashem that he should remain strong and not fall prey to the other Meraglim, to the other spies. Again, that means that Kollel felt without him going to pray, he felt in danger of making the same mistake as everyone else, right? That means there was something that was really compelling, right? That would make it very easy to falter in this test. So what was it? So it's really an extension of what we said till now. We said they understood that now is their time to begin living in the mundane world. The spies, the test of the spies was, will they be able to balance that with what they've learned in the desert? What they learned in the desert is that you can put your entire existence in Hashem's hands, right? And He will come through, right? Meaning the man fell. Every day you can only take as much man as you could eat for that day, right? There's no man left over at the end of every day. That means, and at the end of every day, there was nothing left in anyone's refrigerator, right? There's nothing to eat, right? It means you had to be totally dependent on Hashem bringing you food the next day. There was nothing else to do, right? Meaning that existence had to be balanced with this new existence they're going to have, that they're going to have to act out that they are helping, Hashem, so to speak, in helping them survive, right? Meaning you have to go out and plow and plant, right, and harvest and so on and so forth to bring in your daily bread, right? You have to balance the fact that you're putting all this work with the fact that Hashem is helping you, is the one providing, right? So that's the test. How far are you going to go with only trusting yourself and taking Hashem out of the picture? And the Meraglim went way too far. The Meraglim went in and found a country with powerful people, right, that they felt was completely within natural means, completely impossible to conquer. Right? They saw no chance. And part of the reason why I felt there was no chance is that this is really a recurring theme through now that I saw this, now it's really a recurring theme through the story of the Jews in the desert. But I don't remember if I saw this before or not, but there was a Seforno. This is parasha that every time it says that, we find it like a very puzzling statement. We find different times in the Chumash that the Jewish people said, it was better for us in Egypt, right? Meaning, I should say differently, that Hashem took us out of Egypt because he wanted to punish us, right? What is that talking about? What does that mean, right? What does that mean? Hashem took us out of Egypt to punish us. So the Sfornos is an amazing thing. I'm putting it into my own words a little bit, but the Jewish people had a bit of an inferiority complex, meaning what were they doing in Egypt? They were serving idols, right? Beyond the bondage, right, that they were suffering, they were idol worshippers, right? And they couldn't get it out of their conscience that here they were, lowly idol worshippers, that all of a sudden Hashem chanced upon them, right, and brought them out of Egypt, right? They still felt they weren't worthy of anything, and they did not feel confident, right, in the continued help of Hashem, right, because of their history, because they knew what they had come from, right. They never were comfortable with the good that Hashem gave them. They always were waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? They're waiting for it all to end. Here are the Meraglim, here are the spies, and they're in the land of Egypt, in the land of Israel, and they see this is impossible, right? We're supposed to be living in a natural way now, and that's why we're here, and we see it's impossible. And coupled with that is that why is it impossible? We can't trust that Hashem's going to help us because we're not even worthy of that, right? Not so long ago we were idol worshippers. There's no way we can trust that we're going to have the full weight of Hashem's help behind us enough to defeat these people. So this got into the heads of the Meraglim, and when they came back, they honestly felt the best thing for the Jewish people was not to go into the land of Israel. Because there's no way we can live with that mission. We're not up to that mission yet, right? We have a mission to live in a normal way without this miraculous existence. We're not there yet, right? There's no way we can do this, right? It's not the right thing for the Jewish people to go into the land of Israel right now. That's how it was an honest mistake, right? But then when they came back, they took it up a notch. This the Ramban points out. I never saw this Ramban before until this year. The Ramban points out that there's different levels in what happened and when they gave over what they were saying. And this was really the real downfall of the spies. First they said, they came back and they said they were carrying fruit from the land. And they said, this is the fruit that we brought back. You can see, everyone can see, it was huge. The sages say that each one person carried, I don't remember exactly what the fruit were right now, but one I think carried a pomegranate, one carried a fig, and the other 8 that were carried a cluster of grapes. And Kollel and Yeshua did not carry any because they felt it was only going to be used for a negative purpose. So they didn't carry any of the fruit. So they showed off the fruit to the Jewish people, right? Here it is. Look at this fruit. This is amazing. This is beyond, what the physical qualities of this land are. But they said, however, the people that live there are powerful, right? They live in powerful cities. They're well guarded, right? We saw giant people live there, right? Amalek who lives nearby, right? In which they said strategically, because they knew the mention of Amalek would scare the Jewish people, right? Because as the Jewish people had already had a run-in with Amalek before, right? So they didn't say anything about it's impossible, we can't go, right? They said the people who live there, are very powerful, right? Meaning it's not going to be so easy, right? So they never said straight out what they meant, that we think we should not go. Right, and right then is where Kollel interjected. Kollel interjects and says, "We can do it." Right. Then the Meraglim, the other spies, begin to speak again. They say before they hinted to what they thought of going into the land of Israel right now. Now they say it straight out. They said, "Lo nuchal alo salam." Now they saw Kollel was beginning to strengthen people's hearts. Now they saw that Kollel was ruining their plan. Right now, they still took it up a notch. They said, no. Lo nuchal alo salam. We can't do it. Ki chazak hu mimenu. They are more powerful than us. And they saw, and then says the Ramban, explains the Ramban, they saw they still that Yoshua and Kollel were still gathering a following. There's still the Jewish people trust in Hashem. Then once that happened, their desperation to try and get across that what they thought that we can't do this and this is not a good idea, they went from trying to kind of hint, to what was going on, to the point where they got to Vayotziu Dibas Haaretz. They started saying Lashon Hara. They started speaking evilly of the land, right? They started lying about the land itself. Eretz Ocheles Yoshveahi. It's a land that eats its inhabitants. We've gone from the people that live there too powerful for us to conquer to it's a land that is a bad place, right? The desperation to try and keep the Jewish people from going in drove them to begin lying about the land, and that's why the spies themselves were punished immediately. They're punished, they died by plague immediately, right? Because they took it a step further than the rest of the Jewish people. The rest of the Jewish people cried, right? Because they thought they were going to go into the land of Israel was going to be a positive place, and now they hear it's a negative place, right? But the Meraglim, the spies who said Lashon Hara, right, who spoke evilly of the land, just made up things to portray the land of Israel as a negative place, they were punished right away. That was the test of the Meraglim, meaning the point of living as Jews is to live in the physical world and elevate it, right? To live in this world, to deal with what's the natural world as if, we don't trust, as if we're not expecting miracles, right? As if we're supposed to live as if, right? In the actions we do, right? We live as though we have to do everything ourselves, but with the understanding that we're just playing along with Hashem's plan, right? The spies got swept up. The test was whether you're going to get swept up or not in this, in having to do things yourself. The spies got swept in head over heels, right? Now, the last thing that happened was then the Jewish people themselves. Then Hashem wanted to destroy the Jewish people, and Moshe kind of commuted the sentence to where they were told that they would die in the desert, right, instead of dying immediately. And the people then decided, no, we're going. What happened? So this is really an idea that has to do with, living life as a Jew in general. I heard this over from a Jew in Lakewood named Moshe Rabinowitz, Alav Shalom, a father of a friend of mine. He said, you have to know something about the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara does not live in the past or the future. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, only lives in the present. Meaning, when you think about something beforehand, right, you can have, when people think about what they're going to do with themselves, right? I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to, lose all this extra weight. I'm going to get up tomorrow morning to get to Shachris on time. I'm going to learn tomorrow. I'm studying with my study partner. I'm not going to talk about the things. We're just going to learn Torah, right? It's all easy to talk about, to think about, right? Even to imagine it, right? You can, like basketball players talk about, like when you, sitting at the free throw line, you got to visualize the ball going in, right? If you don't have that, it's not going to go in, right? So you can sit and visualize all you want about, I'm going to get up tomorrow morning on time, when I'm supposed to, so that I can do X, Y, and Z, right? Because I know that's what Hashem wants for me, right? It's fine. Yetzer Hara doesn't mind, right? And also in the past, right? A person has like a sparkling clarity in the past as to what he should have done, right? Like, when a person picks the wrong thing, as soon as it happens, you did the wrong thing, right? The Yetzer Hara doesn't try and convince you afterwards, unless you're a person's, innate, unless the person's ego gets in the way. But hindsight, it's much easier to tell when you did the wrong thing. It's only in the heat of the moment when you have to make a decision. That's where the Yetzer Hara lives, right? Everything you think about beforehand easy to overcome. When you think about what happened, you think about it should have been easy to overcome, right? It's only in the moment that you feel it. Here, the moment was when the spies were in the land, when the spies came back. That was the moment of truth. Will they pass the test or not, right? Once the test happens, once it's over, right, the moment passes, so the Yetzer Hara is gone. There's no more Yetzer Hara, right? The evil inclination is gone, right? He's moved on to the next thing, right? So the Jews woke up. What have we done, right? Beforehand, they wanted to go into the land of Israel, right? It's the future. Once the whole thing happens, it's in the past already. They realize they did something wrong, right? No, we want to go to Israel. We want to go to the land of Israel. It's in the moment. That's where the Yetzer Hara lives, right? In the moment is where you make the mistake. In the moment is where the Yetzer Hara is dangerous. That's the Jewish people they weren't little kids. They don't lose their mind, right? This is the story of humans, right? This is how everyone is, right? We see beforehand, we see it with clarity. Afterwards, we see it with clarity. It's in the moment where the Yetzer Hara lives is where we make the mistake. Okay, thank you everyone for coming, for listening. Appreciate the chance to give over.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Crystal. Can I ask you a quick question, Rabbi Crystal?
Sure.
The sforno that you shared about the inferiority complex, which I found to be absolutely fascinating. Where is that sforno?
The sforno is, give me 1 second.
Or approximately where is it? I've heard this general approach about the transition to Eretz Yisrael was a transition from a kind of divine experience of the desert to a work the soil by the sweat of your brow experience of the land of Israel.
Right.
And that was, I've heard different ways of how that played into what the Meraglim, where the spies went wrong. But this inferiority complex is fantastic.
But those are my words, but I have to find, I saw it brought down, and I didn't look at inside, so I have to find where I saw it brought down now. Give me 1 second. If I don't find it, I'll tell you after.
That's all right, yeah.